Welcome to Her Imprint, part of the Impressions Exchange. I'm Denise Gustafson, your host. This podcast celebrates the remarkable women who are transforming the printing industry. We'll explore their journeys, from challenges to triumphs, and share the stories that leave a lasting imprint. Today, I have with me Madison Hipelius, print and promo sales representative with Liberty Creative Solutions. So Madison, welcome.
Thank you, Denise, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Such a pleasure. So to get us started, can you give me a little bit of background about Liberty Creative Solutions?
We're a commercial printing company. We were started just over 60 years ago. This is our 61st year in business. And it was a company started by my grandfather in the Chicago Heights area. And recently, I just heard an exciting story about where our name came from when we were in a meeting. And the idea that my grandfather started with was he wanted people to have the freedom of being unburdened, of working at a place that didn't have the right technology and tools to get their jobs done. So that's how we started. And we started as that family business about 15 years ago-ish. My mother became our CEO and since then has done a great job of making sure that we are innovative, continually investing in ourselves, and really capitalizing on the way that this industry has evolved over those years. And that's where we find ourselves today.
That is very cool. So I'm going to ask, but I think I might know the answer.
Absolutely.
How'd you get started? Was it because of the family? Did you have a choice to do something other than print?
I absolutely had a choice. And then originally, I did not see myself at all being a part of the business. I had went away to school. I had pursued a degree in photography with a minor in printmaking. And that covered a lot of historical processes of printmaking. Lithography was a big part of it. I found myself just collecting odd jobs after school. I substitute taught for a while. I was shooting photography commercially. And then my mother, our CEO, approached me and she said, "Hey, I have this opportunity. We're looking to start a new division. Would you be interested?" And at the time, it was a part-time role. And I said, "You know what? Let me give it a shot. I'll just try it for a little bit." And then I found myself really having a passion for it and the ability to help grow something that had already provided so much for me growing up was something that I found a lot of pride in and something that I could really find a lot of purpose in as well. So that's how they got me on the hook. And since then, I really enjoyed it. I didn't realize, like growing up in and around it, how much knowledge I had absorbed about the industry and how much love I had for it. It's funny, I found myself running away to school a little bit, not realizing how much the educational path that I had chosen really communicated back to the world of print. A lot about visual communication, a lot about storytelling. And I've taken a lot of my creative education and I apply it pretty much every day.
I was going to say, it's really interesting. Photography is so ingrained in the printing industry as a whole, just from a visual standpoint. And then you have the minor in printmaking. So I do have to say, I loved my time in the darkroom. That was one of the things that I regret not doing more of in college. I took it in my last semester almost as a lark, and I absolutely loved it.
It's such a peaceful place. Yeah, I'm hoping in the next couple of years here to get a setup working out in my guest house, but that's a process.
It is indeed. I think the hardest thing, though, was trying to load the film in complete darkness, but I learned how to do that.
Yeah, and it's riding a bike. Once you do it a couple times, it's just muscle memory.
I wish I just had more background on that side of things.
It's never too late to learn. I'll say that much.
Very true. So how did the photography really help to ground you when you were moving back into the print world?
I think one of the main things that it helped me with, because I'm not necessarily involved on the creative aspect when we talk about preparing artwork, but I think really what it helped me with was the understanding of how to move through that creative process. And a lot of what I learned about myself in school was that I needed that time and space to explore ideas. I needed to become okay that I don't always end up at the place that I imagine when I start something, but that doesn't mean that my efforts are in vain. It taught me a lot of resilience, and it taught me the ability to follow through something even if I got to the middle and I was pulling my hair out and I looked around and I was like, this is not where I intended to end up. So I think that helped me quite a bit to build that foundation of following through and seeing things to the end. And I think it helps me too to see things in different perspectives. That's a lot of what I focus on in my creative work as a photographer still. How can we look at the subject and give it a different importance because of the environment that we put it in or the angle that we're taking on it? So sometimes when I get stuck on a project or we're working on something for a client and they're approaching the situation one way, I like to take some time and take a couple steps back and say, what have we not thought of yet? Or that could be applying that same type of idea to a situation we may want to improve at the organization. Maybe this procedure isn't working, or how do we better communication for our team? Taking that big step back and saying, what have we not considered yet? Are there pieces of the puzzle we're missing? Is there someone's input that we haven't received yet that can help us break new ground on this? I think that's really what it taught me.
Very interesting. Now, question for you about that hook that got you into print again.
Yeah.
What was it that really enticed you to make that move?
Yeah. I think it was the chase.
Was
It's
it?
just having this big sandbox of opportunity. So it was at first we were just fielding a couple of orders for pens here or there. Hey, we want to put our logo on a stress ball or a pad of sticky notes. And very quickly we saw that our clients were requiring more of this work. And when they found out that we could help them with that, they were so excited. We build very deep and resilient relationships with our clients, and that's been a cornerstone of the company since we began. So when we gave them the opportunity to produce more of that marketing plan, more of that strategy with a partner they already trusted, they were so excited about it. And I think the combination of in some ways being thrown into the deep end and just learning something new every single day, whether that was repositioning in the industry, whether that was meeting new suppliers or being given a new objective by the client of, hey, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to engage this audience and it's not a project I had worked on before. That type of something new every time that I logged into the computer just kept me coming back for more.
So was that the turning point for you or really your aha moment that you realized that, oh, wait, this really is what I was looking for?
Yes. I think that coupled with when I understood on a deeper level, because I was having contact with our clients firsthand, that what we did was so much more than putting ink on paper or selling pens. We were truly helping people build connections in the community. We were helping people get better access to healthcare. We were helping people be better stewards of their money when we're working with financial companies. I was making an impact in people's lives, not only helping my clients do their jobs better, but then their end users, making sure they had access to these things that could help them lead a better life, a healthier life, get in touch with a nonprofit to make a difference in that way. It really, to see the impact of how our work played out in the marketplace, that was probably the biggest turning point for me.
That's really cool. And is that also the same way that you would measure your own success on the success of your clients and how they're doing and how they're fulfilling their goals? Or is it
Yeah.
something else?
Yeah, I think in terms of the success of the company, I think that's the easiest way to grasp to draw that measure of success. But I would say, like early in my career, a lot of what, and I laugh a little bit to myself when I say that because I am still very early in my career. But I think a lot of what I tied to and focused on as my value at first was that productivity. How much could I get done in a day? What was I doing for my clients? What did the numbers look like? And as my role has transitioned away from that day to day processing, receiving orders, working with suppliers to a more strategic involvement with the promotional division, and then being a part of our leadership team, and now focusing on outside sales, growing our business, bringing new clients in, I really had an awakening. And I had to realize that I was inherently valuable no matter what I brought to work each day, because for anybody who's in sales, they understand this, and I'm still learning this. There's a lot of rejection involved when you're chasing new business. So at first, it was very difficult because if I tied my value to how many people picked up the phone or responded to an email, I found that lacking every day. So it allowed me to realign that, realize that I was valuable outside of that portion of my role, and then the rest of it's just icing on the cake.
And it takes time to develop those relationships where you can really get into the weeds with them to find out where their pain points are. And that takes time. And sometimes I think it's hard for a lot of people to be able to wait for that
Right.
time to progress.
Absolutely. Yeah, I practice patience and I practice patience every day. So, yeah, moving to that role where I had my entire start, I was fielding requests from clients that had long-standing relationships with our companies already versus trying to build that relationship from the ground up. I really had to reframe my focus. And I heard it once stated something like this, like, you wouldn't walk up to somebody at a networking event and just jump into the elevator pitch and would you buy from me and this and that. And I think being mostly remote and doing a lot of that work of trying to build relationships remotely, I had to remember that is also true in these remote spaces. So that was really a reframing for me and something that I'm still working at.
I guess then the question is with you being remote, how does that change how you approach your clients?
That's a really interesting question. I think it's hard to find that same version of being authentic and to try to put that into the internet sometimes. And I'm somebody that has resisted the whole let me share my life on social media, let me be super vulnerable online. But knowing that is a requirement to building these relationships, I have really pushed myself to share some of my thoughts online, to attempt to build a following on LinkedIn, to engage with people on LinkedIn. And I think a lot of it is I've really had to remind myself that I believe we attract what we need in this life. I need to remove that the idea that I'm not worthy to be in these spaces or the idea that somebody else may not like what I'm putting out there. At the end of the day, that's okay because for every person that doesn't like it, there may be 3 behind them that do. So that's what I try to remind myself.
And that's hard to do. I know for us, even a journalist, we are remote. We work remotely. But to develop the relationships between our internal team members with external customers and readers, it's a constant that we have to do. And you have to continue to build those relationships. But it's different from walking down the hall or walking into somebody's business.
Absolutely. And I think I've always been somebody that does not have a hard time conversing with people one on one. But there's something about putting that keyboard and screen in between me that just adds so many more layers of like second guessing. Oh my gosh, am I saying this the right way and this and that? So I've really been focusing this year on let me trust my gut, let me put it down, and then I let it go. And I don't have any expectations about how I think someone should respond. And that level of detachment has opened up a lot more room for me to feel confident in what I'm doing.
And that honestly just takes trust in yourself, trust in the
Mhm.
process too.
Right.
'Cause it's not a short-term thing, it's going to be a long tail, it's going to take time to get that foothold for any
Right.
of us.
And I think too, I often find myself trying to compare my efforts to those around me, but I often find not only in my professional spaces, but in some areas that I'm involved in my community outside of that, I'm often the youngest person in the room. So every once in a while, I have to take a step back and I have to remind myself the people that I'm comparing myself to may have had 10, 15 plus more years to hone these skills, build these networks. So again, I fall back on practicing that patience and knowing that if I continue to work hard, I will find myself where I want to be.
What is it for you to be in that place, to be the only one in the room, whether it's by gender, whether it's by age?
So that is a great question. And I think in our organization specifically, I have been very grateful, especially as a woman. We have an organization that genuinely supports women. listens to our voices. Obviously, having a woman as our leader at the helm of the company is really instrumental in that. So I haven't encountered any negative experiences like that in my workplace. However, there was a time early in my career where I attended a networking event and a man, we were exchanging very basic introductions, and he referred to me as, quote, very well decorated. And it was a moment, yes, it was a moment that has stuck with me to this day, and I was so taken aback that I couldn't respond in that moment. And so I excused myself shortly after. And I think now what I've learned from that is it showed me how quickly a moment can shift. And I have no control about the ideas and perceptions that someone can bring into a room and how unprepared we can sometimes be for comments in situations like that. But I approach these moments differently now. Again, like I said, I have a lot more self assurance and confidence in myself. And I understand that calling out this behavior and making sure people know it's not acceptable does not have to be confrontational. And I can excuse myself from places that I don't feel welcome, and I know that our industry has so many other spaces that I am welcome. So I make sure I focus my time, attention, and energy on those spaces.
I don't even imagine how you can respond to that kind of a comment.
No, I've learned some tools since, and I think one of my favorite ones is like a non defensive response. Wow, that's a really interesting thought. And we can just leave it right there. And like I said, I moved on and I found people that I connect to better than
The easiest way is sometimes just to remove yourself politely
right.
from that situation. And yeah, like you said, you can't control how people think or how people feel. They
Right.
they own their own emotions, their own reactions. So how do you react to that in
Yeah.
that moment? And I don't even know. I have no idea what I would have said in that moment, honestly.
Awestruck, didn't begin to describe it, but I think as much as that was, like, an unfortunate event, I think it taught me a lot about what it feels like to be in a position like that, and I think more than anything, moments like that or comments that may not have been so direct as that, but people, like, comments on my age, or, "Wow, you're starting so young," and, "Wow, I can't believe" things like that. If anything, they just fuel my fire a little bit more to prove them wrong and to let them know that young people, and especially young women, we have fantastic ideas. We're here, we're ready to innovate. And you know what? If you don't want to hold space for it, that's okay. We'll go where we are valued, and you may miss out on the difference that we can make.
Now you're Gen Z,
Yes, I just barely squeaked in there. So I just turned 26 in February. So again, very young.
and then some of the people that you're dealing with are boomers. So we're talking about a huge difference in how you view the world, in
Right.
how everything is. How do you manage and navigate some of that beyond the situation that you said?
I think a lot of it is, again, perspectives and understanding that people inherently view the world in different ways. And I think something that has been lost somewhat in my peers and maybe people of my generation is the ability to disagree with someone's point of view, but still respect them. And that may not mean that we are going to end up being best friends. It may not mean that we have to hold the same ideas. And we may choose to have more distance from each other, but it's not my job to change what someone else thinks. So I think that's a big part of it, and not choosing to spend so much of my time and energy really tearing myself up about what others think or trying to go to battle over that, I think has been a big shift in the way that I view that.
Learning how to have that respectful professionalism,
Right.
because you may have to work with these people. So
Absolutely.
in some cases, hopefully it's not within your company, but maybe it's a supplier or somebody that you're working with on a regular basis, and you might encounter this on a regular basis. So how do you, again, you might not agree with his viewpoint, his or her viewpoint in some
Correct.
cases, but how do you just make sure it's professional, it's respectful, and you get the job done that needs to get done?
Yeah, and I think again, I think that goes back to perspective and then understanding that while someone may think differently than me, there's a possibility for them to still add value to that situation. some of these ideas that people may have had in the past might have served them better in a different system than we find ourselves existing now. So understanding that, or understanding that they may not have had exposure to some of these new ideas, to some of these different ways of treating people, I think that's important as well. And we have to respect that everybody comes from a different background and has different experiences. Again, that does not mean that we excuse unacceptable behavior, but holding space for everyone to be these unique individual people with different experiences.
And on a professional level, there could be things that they know that they can teach you in regards to technology or the industry or other things that provides a value.
And if we completely shut ourselves off and close ourselves off from the idea of even exploring that possibility, because, oh my gosh, this person is 40 plus years older than me and they don't share the same demographic in so many other ways. The idea that I can't find one singular thing to relate to that person about, I think closes a lot of doors.
Yeah.
And like you said, that learning is so important. And I think one of the best ways that we can understand each other better is when we come together and have those conversations. Even if they may be a little difficult to start, I think the more we open up and try to be vulnerable with each other, we can arrive at spaces where we do share commonality.
And obviously, through networking, that's going to be a key place where you can meet some of these people that you can exchange those. Leaning into how you're growing in your career, how important is it to still do that networking, to find those other learning opportunities, even outside of a networking experience?
I think it's instrumental. I think it's so easy as well to get bogged down, if you will, by the day to day operation. We all have product that needs to go out, emails to answer. But I think almost not enough time can be given to professional development, to learning, to understanding new ideas, to keeping a pulse or a finger on the pulse of what's happening, because our industry changes so fast and so dramatically that if we find ourselves head tucked down all the time, just staring at the work that's right in front of us, we miss a lot of that opportunity to innovate. So I think that professional learning and development has really helped me continue to find progress in what I'm doing and to not take where I'm at right now as this stopping point. But I think something that I have implemented, and I'm sure this is not unique to myself, but it's an exercise that I really enjoy, is the couple of folks that work directly with me on the promotional products team. We do a quarterly goals exercise. So I have them create 4 things that they would like to accomplish in the space of a quarter. And I like to encourage them to have at least one of those goals be oriented around attending education events, whether that's webinars or if there's in person opportunities near them, because there's something so inspiring about getting out of that daily routine and hearing somebody that you may never have met before, but it works in the same space, share ideas about what's working for them or roadblocks they've run into.
You never know what that other perspective is going to shake loose in some
Absolutely.
ways, because they might say something and it'll shake something and, "Oh, I never thought of it that way. I could do things this way," or you never know what you can learn, and I think that's going back to some people that might have closed themselves off to working with maybe somebody younger or somebody female, is that they're missing an opportunity to maybe learn some of the newer technologies, some of the newer things that honestly print buyers are and brokers are looking for, the brands are looking for. So their customers down the line, people that are buying print have changed dramatically. So if you're
Mhm.
not able to connect with those people, what are you missing out on?
And I think that becomes so true too when we look at the industries that we see, because it's
Mhm.
one thing to learn about print and to understand print, but we really push our team and I really push myself to go that step further and understand how are my clients using this vehicle. Because I have a mentor, if you will. He describes it like this. He says, people don't wake up in the morning and say, I need to buy print. I need postcards. That's not what they say. They say, I need people to engage with this new product. I need people to respond to this promotion that we're putting out. So, understanding on that next level, what does my print inspire? How does it bring value to my client? I think that really helps us understand what we do a little bit better.
Yeah, it definitely does. And just going all the way back to something that I wanted to ask and I didn't until now is just talking about promotional products.
Yeah.
The company's been around for how many years again?
61.
61 years as a commercial printer. Why promotional products?
I think they go together like peanut butter and jelly. I like to describe it a little bit less like print and promotional products, and we are truly creating tangible brand experiences. I was reading an article recently that talked about the difference between reading something on physical paper versus electronic reading and the way that our brain absorbs information so differently when we're in that digital space versus when we're having a tactile experience. So I think that's really the cornerstone of what we do. We bring stuff off of the screen back into your hands to build that emotional connection and create a memorable moment around the brand. And I think promotional products really work to elevate the time and impact of an impression. There's some fantastic statistics out there from some of the leading promotional product industry affiliates about how long promotional products actually stay with the end user. And I can even say, like, in my childhood home growing up, we had towels or drinkware or stuff that had been around for probably 10 plus years. Now in my own home, I have stuff that has surpassed 5 years, 6 years now. So I think it really speaks to the longevity and usefulness of that product, and it goes so much further beyond a message at that point, and you have the opportunity to ingrain your brand in a daily life or a daily practice.
Obviously, it's a different thing to bring on a division that's not what you always did.
Right.
Well,
Yeah. There was a lot of learning, and being someone who really loves learning, I think that was the best place that I could have started and somewhere that I added a lot of value. So we definitely learned quickly, and we were really grateful to have supportive suppliers, to have an industry too. The promotional products industry is something like I've never experienced before, where they truly just welcome anyone and everyone that wants to be a part of it. And there are so many opportunities in terms of trade shows, lunch and learns, networking events to learn and to connect with people that have been in this industry for much longer than we have. That was really an open arms reception into the space.
it's interesting because Printing United Alliance, we're co-marketing, we're partnership with ASI in the
Right.
promotional product space. So for us, it's been interesting as we are educating our readers and subscribers to the benefits of offering promotional products. And
Mhm.
likewise, ASI is talking about the benefits of adding print. So as the markets continue to, in a way, converge in a way, they're coming together. Commercial printers are doing promotional products, distributors are selling print. I think in the end, as long as the customer gets the maybe not ROI, but gets the messaging and their brand and their I don't know if it's reputation or something else out into the field. That's where the rubber meets the road in some ways, I think.
And I think it goes back to that idea of not looking at it like I'm selling someone a pen or not
Mhm.
looking at it like I'm selling someone a postcard, but really we are giving them vehicles to help share that brand messaging, help create impression, and help drive interest in what they're offering.
And honestly, we could probably go down a rabbit hole in terms of promotional products, and you say some of them have longevity. A lot of it also depends on what you're providing.
Right.
Much like print, are you providing that high-end experience that somebody's looking for in an annual report or something along those lines versus just maybe a really quick two-color postcard? On the same thing, promotional products, is it just a Bic pen with a logo on it, or is it something that will be used, that can be used for a much longer time? Is it towels? Is it other products that have such higher value, more intrinsic value to those that are getting them as well?
And I think it's not a either or situation,
Mhm.
but it's a both situation and
Okay.
a situation because I think it really comes down to how is that product being used? In what situation are we finding ourselves? If we're finding ourselves at a community event where you may come across hundreds or even thousands of people in a day, we might not opt for the very high end, very expensive item. Or maybe we are at a very initial stage where we're first reaching out to people that might be interested in interacting with the brand. We might not invest as much at that stage as we will in later stages of the communication strategy. So I think each item has its place, but I do think at the end of the day, we really try to put everything we have into those parameters. So we, no matter the situation, are going to suggest the best option that fits that situation. And regardless of the situation, we strive to have the longest longevity of that product and something that really speaks to the message of the brand. That part can be really fun. What's your unique theme that you're working with? What is something that you're trying to inspire? And then tying the product into that can be a really fun experience.
Definitely. And honestly, more and more nowadays, people are putting their money where their mouth is. If a company is touting a certain, maybe it's environmental or sustainability, how are they reflecting that as well? Because people are now deciding where to spend their money based on how they view companies. So that's a huge piece of it as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a very powerful decision, and we all have that ability to influence the marketplace in that way.
So we've covered a lot today, but my favorite question and the one that I'd love to wrap up with is knowing what you know now. You went to college, your family history in the printing industry, helping to start the promotional products division, leading that out, seeing how the industry is changing. If you
Mhm.
were just walking in the door today, just starting out, fresh and new, you have no background, what advice would you give yourself?
Never stop learning. And I think another portion of that advice would be to trust myself. I feel that I find myself in these rooms and in these places for a reason. And that reason often is because I've worked very hard to be there. Throw the imposter syndrome aside, understand that you will always have more to learn. And where you're at right now is where you're meant to be.
Some great advice for those that are just getting started. So, Madison, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
And thank you for the opportunity, Denise. I think what you guys are doing is fantastic. And I wish you continued success as you have these conversations.
Awesome. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this journey to celebrate and amplify the voices of women in the printing industry. If you have a story to share or know someone whose journey deserves to be highlighted, we'd love to hear from you. Together, let's continue inspiring and empowering the next generation of leaders. Until next time, keep leaving your imprint. This is her imprint. See you soon.